Good evening tonight. I'm joined on Talk Badminton by Chief Executive of Badminton Ireland, David McGill.
Evening.
How are you?
Not too bad, Martin. How are you?
I'm doing all right. And how are you keeping in all this? I guess the get fired straight into it. I guess the COVID is the massive topic for sport, right, at the moment. Are you?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I suppose it's the massive topic for everything in our lives right now. Unfortunately, but particularly for sport, and particularly for badminton, for Irish badminton. It's meant that we've stopped the domestic game for the entire season. So it's pretty negative knock on for sport.
And how long do you have to wait to decide on how much future, how much time do you give to say, okay, we can come back again, or do you decide, how does that work?
It's been such a learning curve because I remember when it hit first in March, we kind of were anticipating a couple of months of this, at worst a couple of months, and we started to come out of it. I think initially there was a roadmap out of it around June, where we got the HP guys back playing first, and then we were starting to build. Coming out of it, the first time, there wasn't a lot of time we had to wait. It was a couple of weeks where we kind of had to give out some guidelines, and clubs were able to prepare. The worst part, I suppose, is the reverse of how quickly you can stop and how quickly everything has to come to an absolute halt. That's much more difficult to deal with. What typically happens is the government will come up and say, as of this minute, all of sporting activity needs to cease, and that can happen at 7 o'clock at night. Yes. People can be on court playing when this is going on in some cases. So that's more difficult to deal with, and I think because of that, certainly here in Ireland, we're starting to see a more hesitant, slower approach to opening up again.
Yeah, and tell me a little bit about the facility as a whole, as in what it houses and how many people you get and that kind of thing, as a facility, as a centre, I suppose.
Yeah, are you referring to the regulations around? Yeah. I'm not gonna mince my words. Some of the regulations don't make a whole pile of sense. One in particular stands out to not just our sport, but any indoor sport, which was a maximum amount of people in a indoor facility was 50, regardless of the size of the facility.
Really?
Which obviously doesn't make a whole pile of sense on paper, because you could have a very large 16 court, 12 court, 8 court facility where people could really socially distance, but you could easily have a 1 court local hall, and 50 people in there is going to be a much bigger risk. Yeah. And it was 50 people. That was the guidelines. Now, it was 50 people socially distancing, but we were kind of, before this current lockdown came into effect, all ourselves and a couple of other sports were advocating for a more, forward-thinking approach to restrictions on how many people could be indoors at any one time. Yeah. Trying to base it off capacity of the building itself rather than just a flat
And
number.
how big is your facility?
The facility we use, the indoor arena, I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to give you square footage here, because I wouldn't know it off the top of my head.
Just roughly number of courts, even.
It's a 12 court.
Right,
it's a 12 court hall. Yeah.
And does it get a lot of footfall? Is there a lot of obviously the high performance squad are there, and luckily they're actually able to be there and to play in day-to-day life normally, excluding COVID. How popular is badminton in Dublin?
Very popular in Dublin overall. Yeah, compared to the rest of the country, we've got 13,000 members, registered members overall. That's across the country. Leinster would account for half of that, and then Dublin, again, obviously being the capital city, it's quite big. So we've got a lot of large clubs based in Dublin, and a lot of historic clubs. We've obviously got our centre in the National Sports Campus, which is the one we use. But you've got Terenure Badminton Club, the centre out there with Whitehall Road, which is it's been around for a very long time. A lot of clubs use that, and Baldoyle Badminton Club as well, which a lot of players might have heard of and might have played in. We would have used Baldoyle and Terenure for the Irish Open up until the indoor arena was completed. So,
and how many the indoor arena? What other sports does it house?
Well, the National Sports Campus, which where the indoor arena is on, it's built for every sport really. So it's the Sport HQ. It's nicknamed, I suppose, or called. The indoor arena section we use, gymnastics will use it, basketball will use it, judo. It's a large building, so connected to it is a running track for athletics and for various other sports like that. And then there's a gymnasium at the end. So it's a very big building, big facility, and the campus, the supporting facilities around it are fantastic as well. We will be using that indoor arena for a couple of years while they build a velodrome. They're going to build a velodrome next to it, and we've partnered with Cycling Ireland, so that will then be the National Badminton Centre once that's built for us.
It sounds like an amazing campus.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's long overdue for Irish sport. I think a lot of sports need that facilities, those kind of facilities to be centralised, and you can share services instead of a lot of smaller Olympic sports that don't have the same kind of money as other sports trying to do things on their own. We can share facilities and we can share services, and it's very good. And the facilities are top of the range as well.
And is it an educational facility? Is it part of a university or anything? Is it purely for the sport?
It's purely for sport at the moment. Now they do try and partner with other institutions outside of it, but it's not just the indoor arena and the indoor running track. There's obviously offices, so our offices are based on the campus. There's the Sports Institute, which does physio, nutritional, psychological stuff for athletes who are targeting Olympic medals or European medals. And there's plenty of other sporting facilities. There's I can't even think now at the top of my head, but there's lots of other buildings around for catering for different sports depending on what you need.
It's absolutely phenomenal. I'm trying to think if there's anything similar in Scotland. I can't actually think of anything that covers a whole range of sports like that. It sounds like the dream. And is it a place is it like a residential place to people
Yeah, they are actually there. So I mean, it's still in development.
Is it?
There's a massive amount of undeveloped land that they are still in the process of planning and preparing. So the velodrome is the next building to go in. They are also looking at building an athletes accommodation.
Really?
So more permanent athlete accommodation, and then like hotels. So for if you're running a tournament for officials and that to come in and stay in. They're going to try and commercialize elements of it. So coffee shops, restaurants, that sort of thing. I believe the idea is that this would be a one-stop shop for any major international events that we would hold.
Sounds absolutely phenomenal. And where are you based about? What do you work out of?
So prior to the lockdown, we were in a nice little building that was on campus. It was very close to the indoor arena, and it was called the building itself is actually called Sport HQ. So it's shared between ourselves, swimming, cycling, a variety of sports. There's about 15 or 16 different NGBs on it.
The idea of having all those facilities and actual sports very close by is good. Sports Scotland, I know, actually operate out of an industrial estate in the west side of Edinburgh, and it's quite similar. It's like a business centre with loads of rooms off it, and each room's a different sport. There's all sorts. There's archery, there's rifle shooting, there's all sorts of things. Sailing, I think, is in there, and judo and all that stuff. And it's almost like a business centre for. So I just think it's all of these, but the idea that you can actually be near the sport, and the whole idea of the whole campus is and is that the government that fund that whole thing?
It is. So it's funded by the government, and they've committed to continuing to the development of it. Sport Ireland is on the campus as well, and I think it does really create an atmosphere of collaboration among the other sports, and things are more natural. You're able to just walk down the hall and speak to someone else from another sport, or quickly meet with Sport Ireland, instead of it wasn't too long ago, I don't think, that a lot of sports were disjointed. We were spread across the Dublin city and the rest of the country, and it works quite well, I think, for everybody to be under the one roof.
I think as an economy, I mean, my day job is I sell, and it's a commercial. It's a shared resource, right? You're in one building. It's a business center. Everybody needs broadband. Everybody needs phones. Everybody needs electricity.
Sure.
Everybody needs gas. All of those things. One building supporting the whole infrastructure is absolutely. I think it's absolutely amazing. And tell me what your day to day. I mean, I'm talking interestingly to Daniel yesterday about the challenges of flying, even for Chloe and Sam and the rest of the team. Kate and Moya, is it? Away off into
Kate and Moya,
into the Swiss yesterday and having to fly to different places. How do you get involved in the COVID side of things? What do you get involved in that side of things at all? That travel thing, or not really?
Yeah, I think. Well, no. Look, I'm obviously there to support the guys at any stage. Daniel does have a more interesting time of it on a day-to-day basis because he's obviously managing the high performance center and the logistics of all of that on a more day-to-day basis. I'll touch base with him on a weekly basis, make sure things are going okay. But obviously, that's the HP arm of the Badminton Ireland. Yeah, we've also got events, development, governance, membership, and so my time is split amongst all of those areas, and COVID, it's touching everything. So I mean, we can't run any events right now. No. So the events guys are looking at how do we restructure the calendar for the rest of the year. What elements of the event season can we finish out, if any, and what will we be able to run? So a lot of it is planning and logistics on a different scale. Events would be a big one. Obviously, the Irish Open doesn't happen until November.
Right.
But if last year taught us anything, it was we really need to be prepared and have all our ducks in a row. Yeah. So they're planning for that and other internationals that we may or may not get to run this year. Yeah. And then our membership guys they're sort of on reconnaissance at the moment, trying to engage with clubs. Mm-hmm. A big fear I'd have is that when we do come back to normal, you've lost people. Yes. Volunteers are the lifeblood of the sport. You can have one person can keep a club of 50, 60, 100 people going for years. And if you lose that one person, you lose 100 people. So our guys are really kind of focusing in on trying to engage with people, figure out where potential loss might be and try to support. And if anything, prevent it. If we can.
It's an incredible thing, isn't it? That one person out from all of the people I've interviewed, I have found that that there is generally a common. There's somebody. Everybody I've questioned about why they started and how they started. There's somebody down the road that got them into that selflessly was opening the hall and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing how much it's relied on. And how is it like with governance as far as what kind of do you guide those clubs on a kind of a social media basis? I see Badminton Scotland kind of posting things to say, guidance on changes in the law and the regulations, and that. I guess you have to do all that, do you?
And we were doing it. What I found, much to my frustration, was you'd spend a bit of time, wording something correctly, producing some documents that were easy to read and easily got accessed, and by the time you got it out the door, something had changed.
Really?
And look, it just speaks to the environment we're in. It's an unprecedented pandemic. Yes. Not even the government really knows day to day what's going to happen. So thankfully, I've got a good team of staff around me, and the governance department's really switched on. So we are always pushing out guidance. Now we've been in lockdown, which is basically the guidance is you're not allowed to play badminton for the last while. So we switched to a different tact in terms of governance and just getting people more clued into things like safeguarding, things they're going to need when they come back, Yeah. We ran a lot of safeguarding courses, which is great. It shows that there's still an interest. There are clubs still saying, need my safeguarding done. Now's as good a time as any to get it done. I can do it online. Don't have to travel anywhere. So we're taking.
Funny enough, I was actually looking at your thing about was there a grant thing put out for clubs in Ireland last year?
There was. Yeah, there was. We're actually we're finalising round one at the moment. There will probably be a second round. We were very fortunate that the government put in the supports for sport like ours, and they basically covered potential losses for clubs or for affiliations. So we were able to, with the help of Sport Ireland, we were able to provide some small grants for clubs, to help them get restarted or to help them cover any costs. And we were also able to get some support for our branches.
Uh-huh.
So the branches would be Leinster, Munster, Connacht and Ulster, who've also been hit by this. They haven't been able to run any events. They haven't been able to collect any affiliation fees, and they don't have large surpluses.
I was interested actually to see what. Excuse me. I was actually interested to see what. I run a club, and I see the grant thing coming through, and I was, excuse me, my headphones are kicking in. I was interested to know, like, as somebody that runs a club, you don't pay for the hall, you don't pay for shuttles because nobody's coming. What costs are there that a business club could have that would require a grant? I suppose I was interested in.
Well, I mean, they were numerous enough. People signaled that maybe they might have needed money for when they do restart to put some money down on the hall.
That's true. Yes.
And that's one of the key things we want to make sure is that clubs don't have that financial burden of I don't know how many people I'm going to get on fortnight one, coming back after COVID. Clubs might have been fairly comfortable that 20 people are going to show up on the first day and I'll build from there and I can afford it with 20 people. But you may not, coming out of this, the uncertainty is still there. You could have 2 people show up. People may still be a bit nervous and it might not be cost effective to book the hall with a handful of people. So if we can give the clubs a little bit of money to keep their doors open until those numbers build back up, why not?
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely right. And tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me how you got into the place where you are, I suppose. Where did you start? First of all, do you play badminton?
I don't.
Did you?
I don't.
Did
play
you
badminton.
Ever play badminton?
I did. Yeah,
Did
I played
you?
in school. There are, I believe, and this may not be common knowledge amongst the staff, but they'll know after this. I believe there's a medal at home somewhere from a school tournament. It wouldn't have been a good one now. I think it's a bronze participation medal or something to that effect. But I think one of the things certainly in Ireland is everybody's been exposed to badminton playing at a school level. Every time I talk to somebody, whether it's somebody I've known beforehand or I've just met, and I tell them where I work, I always get the same response. It's, I played that at school.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And I bet they tell you they're really good as well.
They might say they were really good. They certainly won't admit to being any good at the moment.
And so tell me about how you got into this then. Where did it come from? And I guess it's more of a business end, I suppose.
Well, actually, it's quite an interesting path. My undergrad was in video and sound technology.
Yes.
So video and sound production, and there was an internship available with Badminton Ireland. A long time ago now. 2012. Richard Vaughan was the CEO at the time.
Yeah, okay. That's nine years ago, right?
Yeah, and so the internship was there, and it was mostly based around the streaming platform that Badminton Ireland were developing at the time, streaming, and it was an area I could
streaming footage of matches, etc.
Yeah,
good.
So I mean, our YouTube at the moment, I mean, it's gone from strength to strength, and it's much better than it was when I left it. But I'd like to think I contributed something to that. But I started there, and I came up. I'm originally from Limerick, so it's the other end of Ireland. So I travelled up to Dublin, and I started there, and I got a start in the office. Moved from there into marketing. So got a bit of work with them trying to market, do social media stuff. And then look, a lot of this is just good timing. People move on, a space comes up, moved up through the ranks. So I worked for a while in membership, and then I worked for a while in events. And while I was sort of managing events and putting on the events, I did my MBA.
Right.
And I did that part-time for 2 years. And when I was at the end of that, there was a position and open up for the chief executive. That was 4 years ago now, and I just put my hand up and went for it. And They
such
thankfully
a serious job, right? It's such a serious job title. You must look at it and
very
say,
serious.
I'll just throw my hat in and see what happens.
I mean, there was probably an element of I have nothing to lose
Yes.
here. I've got the job.
Absolutely.
But thankfully, I think the board of Badminton Ireland, they did put their trust in me at the time, and I did benefit from knowing a lot about the business already. So I didn't have to learn anything there, and I had some great support around me. The staff were really good, and the board was great, and I couldn't have asked for a better start.
I think it's. I think it helps when you've worked through the ranks and you know everybody and you've kind of gone through it and you meet everybody and you gain respect over years, don't you? It's not something that you just walk in the door in a building and if you're an outsider kind of coming in, it's quite hard to get respect from people by just saying I am it and that's it kind of thing. But when you've actually, it sounds like you've got quite a marketing background, kind of obviously quite a marketing background to help promote, which is what all business needs, I think, realistically, to support a business and make it commercial and have a good commercial head on your shoulders about how you market something and who's going to buy and all those kind of things. It's
exactly
and amazing though that you don't play any badminton. That's what amazes me, is that you never go in the hall and say, right, who's got a racket? Come on, Sam.
I can imagine the look I would get. Funnily enough, there was early in my tenure as chief executive, there was a pro-am match put on where we were playing with the Chinese embassy in Ireland. Brought over some players. Now I will not remember this girl's name, and I probably couldn't have pronounced it, but Dan told me at the time that she was quite a high women's singles player for China, and I was partnered with her in a mixed doubles against Dan McGee and the somebody who worked in the embassy. Now I was a complete amateur, bar my school time. I was a complete amateur. I still contest to this day that the girl at the Chinese embassy who was playing with Dan was not a complete amateur. Yes. And despite me being partnered with a world talented women's singles player, we were soundly beaten because I was an easy target.
It sounds amazing. And so, tell me about. I'm quite interested in the facility in that. So, do clubs play in the hall? I guess, right? And it's
They do, yeah. The campus is open to the public, and I do think that's an important feature. I mean, it is closed down when needed, but it is open to the public. So there are some clubs in the indoor arena that rent it out and use it. And we hope to work with them when we get back to normal. We hope to kind of develop more clubs around there and build out from that.
Fantastic. Good. Well, thank you very much. I think I've covered most of our things. Quite interesting. Nice to meet you. And we'll speak again in the future. I'm sure I'll have a lot more topics to talk about. And now we know you, we can do that. And hopefully
Absolutely.
we've got sound in this recording. I'm sorry, but right. Listen, have a great night, David. Thank you for your time.
You too, Martin.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Take care. Cheers.
Lovely to meet you too.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.